Meet the Mets, meet the Mets. Step right up and greet the Mets. Bring your kiddies, bring your wife. Guaranteed to have the time of your life, because the Mets are really socking the ball, knocking those home runs over the wall. East side, west side, everybody's coming down to meet the METS Mets of New York town. Oh, the butcher and the baker and the people on the streets, where do they go? To meet the Mets! Oh, they're hollering and cheering and they're jumping in their seats. Where do they go? To meet the Mets! All the fans are true to the orange and blue, so hurry up and come on down, 'cause we got ourselves a ball club, the Mets of New York town. Give 'em a yell! Give 'em a hand! And let 'em know you're rooting in the stand. Come on and meet the Mets. Meet the Mets. Step right up and greet the Mets. Bring your kiddies, bring your wife. Guaranteed to have the time of your life, because the Mets are really socking the ball, knocking those home runs over the wall. East side, west side, everybody's coming down to meet the METS Mets of New York town, of New York town.
And we are live, Mets and overall baseball fans. Thank you guys all so much for chiming in to the latest live stream here on WardyNYM, breaking down all the latest Mets news and rumors. And something that I'm excited about to do in today's live stream is the fact that we're going a little old school with this one. If you guys have been following the channel for a while, especially when we started things up last offseason, I did a lot of live streams. I did them for a very long period of time, really just answering questions, talking about all things New York Mets and potential moves that could be had during the offseason. And that's exactly what I'm going to be doing today. So yes, we have topics that we'll be getting into, including a lot on the MLB and their lockout status. I'm excited to get into it. Also, not too happy to talk about some of those things as well. Then we'll be getting into, of course, the update on the New York Mets with Old Timers Day, as that looks like it is, in fact, coming back. Sharing my thoughts a little bit on Mets hitting coach Eric Chavez as he spoke to SNY over the past day or so, and also getting into plenty more on the Mets and their potential options for the universal DH position, as we'll be getting into all that and plenty more, while we're answering a plethora of questions throughout a deep dive live stream tonight. The goal is to go upwards of 3 hours. So if you see it at 3 hours, then there you go. It means we did it. We'll see if that actually holds true in the end, but I do believe it will. But before I go any further, I want to shout out everyone so much. If you're watching live or in replay, thank you guys so much for being here. We're in this horrendous lockout, but let's have some fun with it today and talk some things Mets and overall MLB as well. I see Jake. I see New Yorker. Felix, great member on the channel. Al, how's it going? Joseph, Robert, Will Maddox, how's it going? BMW, Carlos, Mets Nation, Elliot, what's up? Thomas, great member on the channel. Martin, Dave, great friend and subscriber on the channel. Dolores, Compton, let's see. MLB is a joke. I'm going crazy about this lockout. I know. Yeah, it doesn't matter who you're a fan of team-wise. Everyone's kind of getting fed up, and I agree with you in that front, and I really do hope it ends soon. But, again, I think that's still wishful thinking. Appreciate the donation, no less, my friend. Hope you're doing well. Harrison's, how's it going? Joey, Miguel, Optic, Jody, Merlin Full, Jose, Nick, everyone, John, Joseph, Steven, thank you guys all so much for being here. Felix, great member on the channel. Let's dive right in, folks. Like I said, we do have a lot to talk about, and this is going to be a very extended live stream. I am going to just update this real quick because what you see on the MLB Lockout Status, that's from last live stream, so just bear with me. I'm going to put in the new one right now. I didn't get a chance to do it. That's why I was a couple minutes late to today's live stream. My apologies, folks, but bear with me here 1 second. Going to get the new graphic in so that way you guys know what today's topics are, talking points, I should say. There, so there we go. Gonna put that right down here. And there we go, looking beautiful. Okay, again, To my 100 viewers, thank you guys so much for being here. Make sure to smash that like and subscribe button as always. Hold the volume. Everything's good. Like I said, it's an extended live stream tonight. We got so much to get into. Honestly, outside of the talking points that you see here, I just want to answer a lot of questions, to be quite honest with you. I had so much fun doing that in previous live streams last off season. I did it so much, just literally going upwards of hours on end, just answering people's questions, because I know a lot of you guys have a lot of questions regarding the Mets and what they will potentially do, what my thoughts are on that. I know we see a line on a lot of things. I know we see different on other things too, but I appreciate everyone's input regardless on if we agree or disagree on things. All we know is that we love the Mets, we love the MLB, and we just want this lockout to get lifted, and we want to see the Mets make some more moves and get ready for the season. But going into things, let's start off with, yes, something that's going to take up a bit of a discussion, that being in, yes, the MLB lockout and its status. Now, as many of you saw earlier today, Rob Manfred, unfortunately, the MLB's commissioner, was out and spoke to the media. And there were a lot of key points to take away from Manfred's presser today, if you will, if that's what you want to call it. There were some positives, I will say, in my personal opinion, on what the MLB is going to have this upcoming season. There were some things that definitely weren't positive in the sense of, okay, when is the lockout going to get lifted? There wasn't really anything to encourage me too much in the sense of, okay, spring training will not be delayed, because Rob Manfred, many of you guys know this, but I'm going to just run it down real quick. In a nutshell, came out and said that he has no changes at this point in time with spring training. I don't think it takes a rocket scientist to figure out that, yeah, the spring training's probably going to be delayed this year. We're getting awfully close. We're just over a week away from, pitchers and catchers reporting. Then the first spring training games begin right around February 19th. That's, again, just over a week away. So I find it hard to believe that spring training is going to start on time. I know that's a bummer to a lot of you guys, including myself, and rightfully so. So Manfred, as of now, said that there's no changes. Again, I would be pretty damn surprised if we don't have ourselves a delay. And there are fans more concerned about the season starting on time than they are spring training, which tells you that, yeah, we're still pretty deep in this lockout. So Manfred, no statement on if there's going to be a delay. It seems like it will be there. So I apologize if that bothers you guys at all, but it feels inevitable that we're going to have a delay with spring training unless somehow, some way, they can get negotiations ramped up so much in such a short period of time that we get a deal done before the next 10 days. Again, don't see that happening, unfortunately. But some things to keep in note: the MLB and the MLBPA are back in the meeting room this Saturday, okay? The MLB is going to be proposing a counter proposal again on core economics, along with a bunch of things that they hope that the MLBPA will be willing to negotiate on. The MLBPA to this point has been far more lenient on really giving in, I should say, on what their original stances were than the MLB. I think most fans are on the side of the players union for the most part, and for good reason. The MLB is trying to, of course, eliminate some things to get negotiations done better. We'll see exactly how much that holds true, if at all. I hope that they're actually in a meeting room for more than a half hour, because I know that we've seen that multiple occasions since the lockout began, which is a joke in itself. But point is that they will be continuously talking on core economic issues this Saturday. So hopefully we have some progression versus regression. That's always a good thing. I'm going to address this donation quick, and then we're going to go further here in the live stream. Again, a lot to talk about in the lockout, guys. And I know if you guys have questions regarding the lockout as well, please make sure to let me know in the live stream, either in the chat or in the comments after you watch this live stream if it was on replay. Pat Metz, thank you so much for the $25 donation. Really appreciate that. Hype in the chat for Pat Metz. Great supporter on the channel. Always beyond generous. No matter how the negotiations go, I don't want to hear the owners or players say they are doing this for the fans. And more time was spent negotiating instead of giving sound bites, they might have made progress. I agree with you wholeheartedly. I will say this, however. While there's definitely, you can make that argument for the MLBPA to a certain extent, this is heavily driven by the MLB more than anything, because the lockout never needed to happen, okay? Again, really, really appreciate the donation, Pat Metz. Hope you're doing well. Shout out to you, my friend. Everyone, happy in the chat for Pat Metz in the live stream if you're watching live right now. But the point is that if the lockout was warranted in the sense of it was mandatory, like either side had no control in it happening, if a CBA is expired and there is an agreement, then okay, that's a different discussion. But this is something that the MLB did, and I've talked endlessly about this, is the fact that you go in, you put in a lockout when they could have continued negotiations throughout the offseason and just went until something actually happened. But no, the MLB was petty. They took down players' photos. They took down players' articles on MLB.com and tried to spark things, but then did not approach the MLBPA to start negotiations until after 40 days into the damn lockout. So that's the biggest gripe all of us fans have, is the fact that this is all could have been prevented. But it's the MLB's way of operating. We don't agree with it. I think the vast majority doesn't agree with it. It is what it is. You know, it's a broken record at this point. We're in a lockout. It sucks. It really does suck. And it's frustrating for all of us fans. Again, I'll expand on more if you guys want me to, but that in a nutshell is the biggest issue here. And now you have, as Thomas is saying in the chat, lockout was preventative, so there wasn't a strike. I low-key feel like a strike would have happened. A strike could have happened, but at the same time, the MLB's worried about a strike happening going into the season now, when in reality, them starting the lockout is what would cause something like this. So it goes on both sides here. But going back to the points that we were making already, you have, of course, Rob Manfred giving his comments today. And prior to that, you had guys like Max Scherzer sharing his comments further, saying that regardless of what is going to happen, I'm going to get ramped up like I normally do, and I'm going to be ready to go whenever we are going to be playing, going into spring training, and of course the regular season. For those that don't know, Max Scherzer's family, he just bought a house. I think it was for his parents, I believe, right in the Port St. Lucie area, like right by it, which actually was a factor into why Scherzer signed with the Mets. So that way he could have his family close with him in spring training, which is very cool. So it's awesome to see, though, that he's getting ramped up. He's ready to go. Max Scherzer is one of the most biggest voices in the players union side of things, along with many others, including fellow New York Mets, Trevor May, Francisco Lindor. They have an impact. And in case you guys didn't see, Trevor May had some very choice words and very blunt words, quite frankly, on Rob Manfred and the lack thereof of him being a competent commissioner, as you guys are going to see in this clip right now. I know many of you guys have seen it already. It came out a couple days ago when Trevor May was doing his normal live streams on Twitch, because he's a content creator, does a lot of great stuff as well. But I just want to show you guys in case you're unaware, because it's important to look at. I really appreciate how blunt Trevor was here, and just gives you a bigger idea. And there are more players coming out by the day that were originally quiet when the lockout began, saying that, yeah, like sharing their thoughts on Manfred, joking about it, saying how much of a schmuck he is one way or the other. But I want to really show you guys this clip quick on Trevor May from the past day. Even if you watch it already, I highly suggest you just watch it. It's important to soak in what exactly he said here. So we're going to do that right now. Okay, and the volume should be good. So let's see.
Probably spring training mostly, because spring training, first of all, you don't pay players in spring training, so the leverage on their end isn't as high during spring training as it is during the season. He's just not somebody who is not going to use every ounce. Him and all of his people that he put around him, his team, all the executives, are going to leverage every single ounce of everything. They're not. It's not going to. They're going to put every. They're not going to leave this situation thinking that they could have inverted, because it's not a good faith. This isn't a mutually beneficial situation. They want to win.
Can you guys hear that? Let me know. Can you guys hear that in the live stream right now or no? Let me know. I want to make sure everyone can hear that. Harrison's just trying to cause problems, saying he can't hear it. Okay, never mind. All right, I'm going to keep playing it.
So in the past, there's been an element of respect for the game of baseball and tradition and romantic. Like they like baseball. Those things are not on Rob's radar. They're just not that important to him. It's just that simple. He just doesn't really think about the fan as a fan. He doesn't really think about the player as people. He thinks about all of us as a dollar sign, and he wants to move the pieces in order to maximize the number of dollar signs that go to his bosses. That is just the way that it is. Evil, not evil, whatever whatever you think that means. It's just very transactional. That's just the way it is. So it depends on whether or not you like him or not. I don't know him. I don't know him as a person. I just know that is, he does it over and over and over and over, and leaks and it's all just manipulation, and it's all a chessboard move. It's just this big chess game, and the chess game needs to go to the very, very end to get the maximum benefits for the owners. So this is not going to be a good faith negotiation. Not a single negotiation with the guy has been in good faith. He doesn't do good faith things. Good faith means, ooh, I want you to come out in a situation where you're happy, but I also want to be happy. This is more of he goes, as long as I'm happy, I don't care if you're happy. That's the way that it's being approached. See, good faith needs to stop being said. It's bad faith. Good faith doesn't exist. So stop acting like it was even a possibility. It's not the way he operates.
Okay. So obviously some pretty blunt words there from Trevor May, as many of you guys probably saw already, but I just want to share that with you guys again, because in my opinion, I thought that was incredibly important to see him come out. And because we've seen people in the players union share their opinions on Manfred Array, but not to I shouldn't even say not to a degree like this, but he's been one of the most vocal from what we've seen. And I appreciate that, especially because of the fact that, look, now, do I agree with everyone on everything on the players union side? No, I'm sure I don't, but the vast majority I do. And that's why I thought it was important to, especially Trevor, of course, being a New York Met. I personally really appreciate the comments that he had to share, because it just further reaffirms what us fans feel the majority about in regards to Rob Manfred. Tell me one thing that Rob Manfred has done that has been a significant positive since he first became commissioner all those years ago. You really can't find any, and there's reasons behind it. And it tells you that a lockout wasn't just avoidable, but it's the fact that the MLB has won year after year after year. And we're still in this situation now, every 5 years, I should say, because that's when they negotiate every 5 years for a new deal. So the fact that we're in this spot now and what the players union is asking for isn't anything drastic. It makes the game better. I want every team to be as competitive as possible. I don't like it when you have bottom feeders in the league. I'm sorry, I don't. I know that there are fans out there that like the idea of those teams. I'm just not one of them. Like, when I personally go out to see the New York Mets, I want it to be a situation where the Mets are playing a top team, a rival. I like to watch those games far more than I like to see the Mets get blowout wins against, let's be blunt here, shitty teams. So I'm completely on board with the MLBPA in that aspect too, and trying to grow the game and try to make it better, more competitive for teams that are normally acting cheap, which is what the Wilpons were for so long until Steve Cohen came in. And might I add, the New York Mets are in New York. That's a big market. So for them to be as cheap as they were was definitely a problem. But think about all the other owners in the league that have hundreds of millions of dollars, billions of dollars, and are just acting like they have to penny pinch in order to get by and to give nothing to be excited about for a devoted diehard fan base, especially of smaller market clubs. It's inexcusable, and that's why I'm still on board with the MLBPA, because they're trying to make sure that things are more level-headed across the board, and that's something that the MLB has been so reluctant to do for a while now. And outside of Trevor May's comments, outside of Max Scherzer's comments that you can find on The Athletic, if you guys follow The Athletic, there's been stuff public that you can see also on Twitter. But also Francisco Lindor was interviewed by Andy Martino today. Of course, it was Andy for SNY asking his thoughts. And he said how, more than anything, they just want to get a deal done. And he said that he obviously doesn't want the season to be delayed, but if it's something that can happen. From what Lindor voiced, it seems obvious that obviously they want a deal done, but more than anything, they're going to prioritize that they get what is something that they truly believe that they deserve. They're trying their best not to cave in, because it's so easy for the MLB to win every 5 years, because they do have a lot of upper hand on things. And when you get to the time of missing games where players' actual salaries are going to be impacted, that's where you can start to have the players union really start to cave a bit. So it's going to be very interesting to see how this all plays out. But I will tell you that this is something that needs to change. The MLBPA deserves to have the majority of the things that they're asking for, because they aren't drastic. They really aren't. And it's something that I truly, personally, in my personal opinion, will make the game better. And there's so much information that if you guys want to do your respective due diligence on all the points that they're looking for right now, on trying to make things better for the league as a whole, and not just individually, but of course themselves. That's a big part of it too, because they want to make sure that they just have balance, that if you can eliminate things like service time manipulation, which unfortunately it's still going to be a problem as of now. But when you talk about things that can help to a certain degree in competitiveness, something that was agreed upon, one of multiple things that Rob Manfred made public today in his presser, is that we are going to have a draft lottery. Now, if you guys aren't familiar, draft lotteries vary a little bit depending on the league that you're in. the NHL has a draft lottery, and of course the NBA, and they're fun. I think draft lotteries are fun. They're something that is still going to benefit, obviously, the worst teams in the league. There are teams that still purposely tank to have the best draft lottery odds, especially in the AHL. That's something that I've been following for a couple years, being a big hockey fan. It happens. But there is nothing guaranteed in draft lotteries either, which is what makes it exciting. So, for instance, you could have the Baltimore Orioles say they're the worst team in the league next season, which I actually don't think that's going to be the case. But let's just say that they are, right? They could have the best odds for the first overall pick, but there's a solid chance, even if it's slim, that they're not going to get that. And because of that reasoning, that could have a impact over time on the MLB on how they operate, especially if you have bad draft lottery odds. There are teams for respective sports that do not have good odds. You think that they would, but Buffalo Sabres are a great example, in my opinion. Sabres have lost out multiple times when they were supposed to have the first overall pick. I'm a New York Rangers fan for hockey, so in case you guys don't know, a couple years ago, literally just 2 years ago, the New York Rangers won the draft lottery when they were a borderline playoff team. They had little to no chance of winning the lottery, and they somehow did that year, taking the first overall pick away from teams like the Detroit Red Wings, and I'm trying to think of who other bottom feeders were at the time, LA Kings, etc. So there's possibilities to have things be creative and more fun when you have a draft lottery, and I like that. It is fun, and I think that's good for the game. Something that I am slightly disappointed about personally is the fact that you still have not being able to trade draft picks. That's a problem. The fact that you can trade draft picks in all major sport, but not the MLB yet. How behind on the 8 ball do you have to be? They're behind on literally everything humanly possible, but they're behind on this too. And that's something that needs to change, because when you can start trading draft picks in the MLB, that opens the floodgates for all different type of trade possibilities. And it can directly impact teams that really want to stay consistent long-term, that are bigger market clubs that are willing to pay. Like the Mets, a great example. Mets do great with their drafting, but if the Mets are in a situation where they can spend every year, but also have the potential to also acquire top draft picks, say a top 5 pick, because they really want a specific player, that could even impact them within, say, his first couple years into the pros. Like, that can be huge. And that doesn't just go for the Mets. That goes for a lot of different teams. But before I go any further, I just want to thank you guys all so much that have been chiming in the live stream. We're going to be getting into a lot on the Universal DH here in a second, and answering a plethora of questions that's going to take up the vast majority of the live stream. So make sure to smash that like and subscribe button if you guys are enjoying. I'll be right back. Just have to grab something real quick, but stay beautiful, guys. I'll be back in 1 second. Okay. Oh, a $3 donation from Chris. Thank you so much for that, Chris. Really appreciate that. Hyping the chat for Chris. They better play the first spring training game. Tim, I think it's going to be delayed. I'm sorry, buddy. Yeah, I mean, I wanted to go down and potentially do the trip with the 7 line. I know that they're going to be down there. It doesn't seem like that's ideal right now, unfortunately. It's just the worst timing when it comes to trying to be plan things for spring training, let alone the start of the season. Like, I'm still trying to contemplate when's the best time to get tickets, because I don't know exactly when the games are going to be, if they're going to be on time or not. Again, I hope that they will. But to really wrap things up here on the lockout talk before we get into the other topics here, again, spring train, I think at this point is still at risk of delay. We're going to see what happens. But again, 10 days away until, we're supposed to be getting no, I just don't see that. I'm sorry. Then you have, of course, no more draft compensation that we are now discussing. I didn't discuss it prior. So it's not starting this offseason. It doesn't look like it should be in effect next offseason. But going forward, if teams offer a qualifying offer to a player and that qualifying offer rejects it, that team is no longer able to get a draft pick. So in years going forward, if the Mets don't want to give up a draft pick, they have no problem. It's not going to be an issue now for guys on qualifying offers that reject it. This is something that has been an issue for the Mets this year, because they are the only team in the MLB that has a first-round pick that they would have to give up as compensation, because they have 2 firsts from the Kumar Rocker situation. And that also goes in hand with this, because going forward now, if a team drafts a player and loses out on that player, they're no longer going to be compensated. So the Mets are the final team, it looks like, in the MLB for at least the next 5 years that are going to have a situation where they lost out on a top draft pick like Kumar Rocker and got a first-round pick as compensation because of things falling through with him. If that happens for any other team in the drafts over the next 5 years, they're not going to be getting a comp pick. So keep that in mind. That's really important. That's unbelievably important, especially with the ability to now go after players that reject a qualifying offer. That is also going to benefit those players too, because let's be real, every single year, teams take advantage of that system, especially knowing that, yes, I can throw a qualifying offer at a player. I know for certain he's not going to accept it, so that guarantees me at least a second-round pick from whoever signs him. It's good for the team. I understand that, but I'm saying from a market standpoint, it's going to do wonders. It's going to do so many things better for teams across the board that are active in free agency year in and year out. I do think that's going to make the market more interesting in years going forward too. So that's something I'm excited about. I'm happy about those. And one more thing that I do not have listed here, but I do believe it is just about official, is yes, we're going to have 14 playoff teams for each side. So for the AL and the NL, we're going to have an expansion of 14 teams, it looks like, which, again, I don't love playoff expansion. I don't. It is not nearly to the degree that it was when we had the shortened 2020 season where the Mets didn't even make playoffs, when at least how many teams made playoffs that year? It was ridiculous. Or I'm sorry, not 14 teams on either side. 14 in general. Is that how it is? Wait. No. Maybe I'm getting myself confused now. Let me double check real quick. I think I misspoke. Give me 1 second. Let me see. I know that playoffs are going to be expanded. I just don't know to what extent. So I apologize. I do think I misspoke there. It's not going to be. It doesn't look like it's going to be expanded though to the same extent that it was before. In the sense of we had like the majority of the league back in the shortened 2020 campaign. Like I said, where the Mets weren't even in it, unfortunately. Yes, it does look like 7 teams for each side. Yes, so it was 14 in total. I don't know why I thought I misspoke there. So yes, 7 on each side. 7 for the AL, 7 for the NL is looking like what they agreed upon, which is something that I'm fine with. Like that doesn't change anything for me. And this is something that's been proposed for a while. The MLB proposed this back in the end of November. So that looks like it is going to happen. I'm okay. I'm content with that. Don't love it, but don't hate it either. Definitely something that isn't nearly as bad as what it could have been when you think of expanded playoffs. Do have a donation here. I'm going to address that real quick. That being Pemets. Pemets, thank you so much for the $10 donation. I really appreciate that. Larger markets don't like their money going into pockets of smaller teams instead of payroll. A handful of small market teams only need 8, will hold everything up to get more for themselves. Let me read that again. No, you're right, Pat Mets. No, you're 100% right. And it's something that's been a problem. And I think when you talk about wealth and like even distribution, I wasn't against the possibility of going after, having a floor at least. I wasn't against that at all. That was something, however, that the MLB was drastically against. And that's why we're not seeing anything like that right now in regards to luxury tax. It does look like that we're probably going to we may have a luxury tax increase. It does look like we're going to have it. To what extent, we don't know right now, though. Regardless, so penalties-wise and things of that nature, like for the New York Mets that are destined to go upwards, if not past $300 million post-lockout, it's nothing that us Mets fans should be, entirely concerned about. But the big thing, what's going to be taking up a good portion of the live stream here, folks, is yes, the universal DH. Universal DH is official. We're going to be getting into shortly DH options as you see listed above. We all know the majority of these DH options, but I'm going to be breaking them down further and really asking you guys what you would prefer regarding the universal DH. Because, look, I talked about the DH plenty, but I completely understand fans that love seeing pitchers hit. It's fun. I love seeing DeGrom hitting him hitting north of 400, being like the Mets' most clutch hitter this past season. Yeah, I enjoy that, but I enjoy having a competent hitter in your lineup every single day a million times more than I do having your pitcher bat that's almost a sure guaranteed out almost every single time he comes up. So I'm sorry to the fans that like more the old school way. I want a league that's balanced. I've always despised the idea of having the American League have things one way, having different rules than the other league when they have to match up for the championship in the end. You prolong players' careers in the American League with the DH. Big Papi doesn't exist without the DH. Of course, in the second half of his career, for a large portion. You look at so many guys. Nelson Cruz, the latest that we're discussing, that's on the thumbnail today. His career doesn't continue really if you don't have a DH. These guys have been given the ability to stretch out their careers and still have great pop in their bat because they don't have to worry about defense. There's so many players that lost their jobs earlier in their career because all the DHs were filled up by half the league and they weren't able to go to any NL team because the NL didn't have DH. So I feel bad for players in years prior that were all in the NL throughout their entire career and maybe had to stop short because the fact that, yes, they couldn't have a DH. Like Yoenis Cespedes, for example. Cespedes, I'm not going to get into a tangent on Cespedes. We loved him. We hated him. He's someone, though, that obviously could have been a potential fit over the past, couple of years as a very strong DH fit. And he's just one of multiple. So I love the DH idea. I hate the fact that you can go in a championship game and you have a DH like for the first time. It baffles me. I want things even keeled. We are finally getting that. And that's going to automatically help the health of these Mets pitchers. Jacob deGrom, every single one of deGrom's injuries, he said it himself. If you remember the pressers he had before he had his injury going into the All-Star break, which is unfortunately what ended his season last year, all those previous injuries were from swinging the bat. So even though he was hitting and even though it was fun, he was still getting hurt swinging that damn bat. And when you're the best pitcher in baseball, you just can't have that happen. A team can't have that happen. Now we have no more double switches too, which is amazing. I have PTSD from Louis Rojas doing that so many times this past season. We don't have to have anything stupid with the switches. You can just have a guaranteed bona fide big pop bat in your lineup every single game. And that's going to make the games more exciting. You're going to have more offense naturally because of it. So from my point of view, as a fan that's always been in favor of the DH and not against it, I'm ecstatic. I know I have viewers right now that I'm like, oh my God, why do we have the DH? This sucks. I want the pitchers hit. I get that. But the reality is, if you want the game to actually have more excitement, if you want the game to be more entertaining, if you want the game to have more players that can impact your team for the better, DH is the way to go. I'm happy. It's long overdue. So to everybody in the live stream right now, I want to know, what is your stance on the DH? Are you happy or are you upset? Because if I go in the poll right now in the live stream, because I did put a poll up, it's still pretty strong. Out of over 200 votes right now, we have 90% of you guys say yes, you are happy with the universal DH. And guys, we are also just under 40 likes away from 100. So if you haven't already, continue smashing that like and subscribe button, folks. Is always appreciated. Help us get to 100 likes for the next short-term goal. Whoever becomes the 100th like in the live stream will get a massive shout out as always. And we're trying to get to 200 plus likes by the end of the live stream per usual. So thank you all so much for the likes and the support, guys. I like it all for DH. Blacklisted Outdoors, my man, how are you? Long time no see. Very happy to have you in here. Hope work is doing well for you too. I know you've been traveling around a lot. Hope you and your family are doing well. Thank you so much for chiming in. Not super happy about the DH, but it was inevitable. Yes, it was inevitable. You're right. Again, I think for a lot of people that weren't in love with the DH idea, I think you're going to ease up on it over time when you see how much it benefits a team like the Mets. I truly do, because the Mets are a team that's going to be directly impacted for the better. Michael, how's it going, my man? Appreciate you chiming in. Who would I have as my DH? There's a lot of guys I would have as a Mets DH, to be quite honest with you. We'll be getting into that shortly, though. As you see the list, there's some options here already outside of internally, externally. We've talked about them all for the most part. Outside of one, there's only one other that I could potentially do an individual segment on, which I may. But again, he's someone that I would be pretty surprised about. But there are definitely some strong DH options for Mets internally and externally. And it's very exciting. I love the fact that the Mets have options here. They really aren't limited. There's a lot of different routes that they can go, and most routes I'm in favor of, to be quite honest with you, for the most part. But before we get on to these DH options, I would like to take a couple minutes to just shout out Mr. Steve Cohen for keeping his word. As many of you guys know, the Wilpons, what did they do in paying homage to Mets legends, Mets greats? Very little, un poquito, if you want to say it, right? Not a lot of things going on. Steve Cohen, when he came in as owner over these past couple of years, he made it known that he wants the Mets to appreciate their history, right? The best players in Mets history. Guys that have been long overdue to be inducted in the Mets Hall of Fame. Guys that are long overdue to get individual statues. Tom Seaver will be out front in Citi Field starting this season. Keith Hernandez will be enshrined in Mets glory, finally, as a retired number for the Mets. And now we have chef's kiss, what Keith leaked out to us in his recent presser when talking about him getting his number retired. Yes, Old Timers Day is back. I'm so excited. Obviously, I've never witnessed this as a fan. It'll be happening August 27th this season, and a plethora of Mets alumni will be in attendance. And I'm stoked for this. This has been long overdue too. I know so many fans love this. I'm beyond excited for Old Timers Day. I think this is going to benefit the Mets so much. It's such a cool thing to have. And if you look at all of the people that are going to be involved now, you're going to have young to old. You got Daniel Murphy, the recent Mets killer after his time with the Mets, of course. Only 37 years of age. He's going to be at Old Timers Day. He's going to be he's going to be tearing the cover off that ball. You got Mike Piazza, the legend himself. He will be there. You got Mr. Floyd. You got a lot of exciting guys that are going to be there. And I'm going to go through the list here in 1 second to tell you guys everyone that's going to be there in case you don't know. Okay. 92-year-old Frank Thomas. The fact that this man is going to be there is amazing. It's insane, and I absolutely love it. The diversity between these levels, different generations of Mets. It's so sick. Different decades worth of them. Okay, John Matlack, Felix Milan, Mookie Wilson, who Mookie just turned 66 a couple days ago. Shout out to Mookie Wilson. We love the man. Howard Johnson, Bobby Ojeda, Robin Ventura, Turk Wendell, Andy Chavez. Andy Chavez's birthday was recently this month as well. Cliff Floyd, yes, Mr. Floyd. Daniel Murphy, love to see that. I love it. I really love. I just love the fact that you have guys all the way upwards of 90 years old, and then you get someone like Daniel Murphy in there. I love the diversity. I think it's gonna be so much fun. And for diehard Mets fans like us, especially for more seasons fan, look, I'm a diehard Mets fan, but I'm not a seasoned fan. Obviously, I'm only 21 years of age. So for everyone that has witnessed, say the 86 Mets, or even, of course, the late 60s Mets, you get to appreciate these guys from different eras, and they're all blended in one. That's what I've always loved most. And I don't know exactly how you guys feel. I've always loved and appreciated when you especially retire a player's number and how they're enshrined with different decades, different generations, different eras of that team. Recently, for hockey, Henrik Lundqvist for the New York Rangers got his number 30 retired. As a Rangers fan, I was ecstatic, but point is that he was now enshrined with the group from previous decades to when the Rangers won it all, the Stanley Cup in 1994, and even way before that, decades before that, when they had other Ranger legends and when they first started out. So I just love when you have guys from different eras all kind of combined and collaborative together. And I'm just so happy that the Mets are finally giving appreciation to their greats over the years. It's beyond overdue. I think most Mets fans are going to be pretty happy to come on August 27th to see them all having fun out there. It's going to be something special. Very, very excited for it. Dave, thank you so much for the $5 donation. Really appreciate that. Went to an Old Timers Day as a kid. That's awesome. Saw Stan Musial. Oh my goodness, that is insane, Dave. That's amazing, though. See, Dave, finally, you'll get to see it again, right? You can probably appreciate it more than anyone else because you've actually witnessed it before. I can only imagine how upsetting it's been for someone like yourself who's seen it and now, unfortunately, hasn't seen it in how long now. Dave, thank you so much for the donation. Hope you're doing well, my friend. You're disappointed. I'm disappointed you're a Knicks fan. I mean, I think the majority of people watching this are Knicks fans because the Nets just don't have a fan base in comparison. I'm sorry. I know that's going to offend some people, but the Brooklyn Nets don't even sniff the fan base of what the New York Knicks have. So, you know, it is what it is. And yes, my Knicks did not make any trades today. I was on a trade deadline live stream earlier with my guy Richie, not just at Mets Media, but Knicks Media as well. And the Knicks did nothing. Just a lot of disappointment that went on today in Knicks land. Mets Nation, Elliot. Do I think the Mets can really get Chapman? Yes, I do. I'm assuming you meant to say Chapman there. Yes, I do. I just did a video on that yesterday. If you guys want to check it out, please make sure you do, of course. But yes, and we'll be talking more on Chapman throughout the Q&A tonight. He's definitely a guy that I would be keeping an eye on post-lockout because if the Mets do prioritize going down a trade route, especially for a starting pitcher, Matt Chapman is that best way to kill two birds with one stone in the scenario that you part with someone like Jeff McNeil. Not that I want McNeil to be parted with. I'm saying in the scenario that it happens, that, of course, is where you're going to see that become a reality. And Brian, I've been great. Hope you're doing well, my man. Appreciate everyone chiming in, folks. Appreciate everyone's support. Awfully close to 100 likes to the stream. Thank you guys all so much for that. Love and appreciate you guys always. So let's get into, I think we talked about everything, right? We talked about everything with the MLB's lockout status. Again, for the people just chiming in, if you're on replay, you're probably like, why you got to repeat it? I got to repeat it. I'm sorry. Rob Manfred, talk today. Next meeting, Saturday, MLB, MLBPA. Rob Manfred, MLB, MLBPA agreed to universal DH this season. No more compensation for a draft pick. Say if you reject a qualifying offer, or say that your draft pick, that whoever you go for, you end up not signing. Can't get a pick for them anymore. It's done. It's over. It's out of here. That'll be starting next offseason, I believe. I don't believe it'll be starting this offseason. Otherwise, I'd be talking about the possibilities of a Nick Castellanos, a Carlos Correa. But it doesn't look like that's actually happening this offseason. I believe it's put in effect next offseason. If I'm proving it wrong, that's perfectly fine. But I do believe that's the route we are currently going down. And overall, just exciting stuff knowing that they're at least making some progress. To what degree, we're going to find out over these next couple weeks. Things are getting really intense with the spring training coming up. That is for certain. But let's get into DH options, folks. That's the big one, right? That is the absolute massive one. That's going to be taking up a good portion tonight because I've talked about everyone. Nelson Cruz, Kyle Schwarber, Soler. Soler is that interesting one that we haven't really discussed before. I've shot down on him in the past because he really is someone that only makes sense as a DH fit. Now you have that possibility. Contract-wise, what is someone like a Jorge Soler going to be looking for? That's an interesting factor as well. He's definitely a guy that I have a certain level of intrigue to. Hard for me to see him leaving Atlanta now, though, especially if they do, in fact, let someone like Freddie Freeman walk. They're still going to have some money that they can work with, and I could see Soler coming back in DH to stay in Atlanta. Internally, however, Mets have a plethora of options. Our most recent video is on the guy that is probably going to be the biggest breakout of a rookie for the Mets this year, that being in Mark Vientos. Make sure to check that video out if you haven't already, folks. I had a lot of fun making that one. And Vientos is someone that, more than anything, if he's going to get time for the Mets this year, which does seem like it's a strong possibility, it's probably going to be at that DH position or coming off the bench more than anything else. It's hard to justify it being any other way. With him being a starter in this lab, there's no other way you could really justify outside DH, given how deep the Mets are and the positions of which Vientos would play, either at third, in the corner, etc. So DH is where he would slot best. Big pop in his bat. Again, had a lot of fun making that video. Then you have, of course, Robinson Cano and that horrendous contract. What are the Mets going to do with that contract? Well, if they don't eat it, if they don't part with it some way, somehow, Robinson Cano is going to be on this team. And do you want Robinson Cano to be in this infield? No. I know I don't. Can Robinson Cano potentially just come off the bench? Yes. Can Robinson Cano potentially profile really well as a DH? Yes, there's potential there. I'm concerned with Robinson Cano and the likelihood of him being a good DH. Cano is someone that I could easily see having a resurgence and being a Big Papi-esque and Nelson Cruz-esque and a guy that, of course, is towards in the latter half of his career, but because he doesn't have to worry about defense, he can just thrive with his at-bats. He still has a beautiful swing. I'm not denying that. But Cano is someone where he's just a big wild card for me. I don't think that he's a certainty at all at this point in time to suggest that he is 1,000% going to be with the Mets to start the season. I know that that may seem a little far-fetched to many of you, but I've just always had this hot take that Robinson Cano may not be in a New York Mets uniform for at least much longer. Again, we're going to see what happens. But other DH options are, of course, J.D. Davis, who I think actually profiles really well at DH because he doesn't have a glove. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure that one out either. Dom Smith, similar scenario. Dom, where's he going to play? You're not playing that man in left field because he's not a left fielder. He's not an outfielder. He's a strong first baseman, but the Mets have a very good first baseman in Pete Alonso, and which Pete was actually above average at the first base position defensively this past season. So for all the people that share the narrative that, oh, Pete can't play first base, give me an effing break. You're not watching. I'm sorry. Did you watch 162 like I did last year? Because if you did, and you're still coming at me with that take, I don't know what you're watching. Maybe you're watching the opposing team and not the Mets, because Pete Alonso actually has a very solid glove, is beyond acceptable, and is by no means a defensive liability. And for what you get with his offense, yeah, no. Pete is someone where, do I think Pete profiles amazing at DH? I absolutely do. But the likelihood of Pete going at DH is slim to none as the main thing of his career. He's very adamant about staying at first. He takes pride in being a good first baseman. And that's something where I don't think the Mets are going to have much say in trying to toy him out of that, nor should they right now. Pete is the Mets starting third baseman. That's going to be the case for the while. And again, I think down the road, maybe more so in the second half of his career, Pete 100% could be like a killer DH. And I wouldn't be surprised if he gets DH spots time, a certain level of time this upcoming season. But to think that he's going to be a significant DH where he's playing that either 50-50 with first or more than first, I think is beyond foolish. I don't see a world where that's happening, at least in the near future. I don't think that Pete is going to be a prominent DH in the near future. Down the line, yes, but right now, no. He's not going to be there because of the fact that he doesn't want to be, and he's a competent first baseman. The Mets can handle him at first without a problem. Penn Mets, $10 donation. Thank you so much for that, my friend. Cano is on the roster if we like it or not. Realistically, I believe he is going to clog up the DH spot. For all the possibilities, the roster spot he takes keeps a usable piece off the team. If everything that you said is accurate, which it very well could be, then yes, it's frustrating. It really is frustrating. If Robinson Cano comes into the season with the Mets and he does in fact stay on the team and he balls out at a DH and say he has 25, 30 home runs, no one's going to complain. I will not complain. That would be awesome. I think that's asking for a lot right now, however. And it does suck that a reality does seem like that Cano will stay on this team because of how difficult it is to part with that contract, because he has a no trade or no move clause. I know that. I think the most realistic way to part with someone like Cano is to actually eat his contract. Now, is this something that can be done? Can Steve Cohen do that? Yes, he can do that. Will he do that? That's a different discussion. All I know is that the Mets are going to do everything that they possibly can to make sure that this roster is the best of their capabilities to start the season. If Cano is not fit, if they believe he is not ready, and if they believe that they can make this team drastically better by having someone else, external options, especially at the DH position, then they're going to do it. And I do not think that we should denounce the idea of the Mets going externally after a DH. It's going to be really curious to see what they prioritize most bat-wise post-lockout. If they do prioritize, say, a DH option more than an infield option potentially, or an outfield option still. They still have a lot of questions that they need to answer, but rest assured, when you look at the DH options for the Mets, if they're trying to add at least one more bat, right? Let's talk with the hypothetical, the assumption that Jeff McNeil is not traded. Let's say Jeff McNeil is Mets second baseman going into the season. Okay. Mets still want to add another bat. Okay. Say Mets trade a J.D. Davis and or Dom Smith. Okay, that even gives you more reasoning to go after a DH level type because you got rid of guys that really were more DH levels, like those two. Kyle Schwarber, 3-year deal. Sign me up. Are the Mets willing to go multiple years for Kyle Schwarber? I don't know. Will Kyle Schwarber cost you much less than, say, a Chris Bryant? Yeah, he will. He will be cheaper than a Chris Bryant. Is he versatile? No. Chris Bryant is on a different spectrum than someone like Kyle Schwarber. You're not evaluating them on their defense here, though. You're evaluating them on just the bat aspect. Kyle Schwarber would be huge for the Mets. He is a guy that crushes fastballs. He's one of the best fastball hitters in the league. His on base is insane. He has an amazing eye at the plate. And he's someone that, when you look how the Mets fared this past season, they couldn't hit a fastball straight down the dick. Let's be frank here. They couldn't hit anything. JD Davis swung through more fastballs right down the pipe than I could imagine. Same thing with Francisco Lindor and everyone else. They just kept doing it. Kyle Schwarber didn't do that. Kyle Schwarber actually took advantage of what was given to him last season and had himself one of, if not his best offensive year, splitting time with the Nationals and DC. And those numbers were a little inflated because he just was a Met killer. So that's part of it. But I think Schwarber would be fantastic for the Mets on a shorter term deal in this one now stage. I do think it's something that they will consider. Same thing why, if we're talking about short term, Nelson Cruz is not someone that should be ran off. I know that there are people that don't like Nelson Cruz because he's limited with his ability. He's a Robinson Cano type in the sense where you're not getting much defensive ability, just getting a DH. Yes. But in the scenario that the Mets don't care what happens with Robinson Cano, in the scenario where they just eat his contract, in the scenario where they keep him just as a bench fit, not even as your DH, but just as a bench guy, and say in the scenario where you trade one or both of JD Davis, Dom Smith, Nelson Cruz is one of, if not the best DH option out there for a team like the Mets. 1 year deal, 40 plus years old. Who gives a rat's ass? It's a DH. That's what they do. And for the people that were concerned about Nelson Cruz and having a subpar second half when he got traded to Tampa, Nelson Cruz has had his worst career numbers in that stadium. Just like so many players have struggled in Tampa Bay. And it was a great point that James Shiano, who's on the channel at least a month and a half ago, discussed with me in a previous live stream, how it was curious why Tampa traded for him when his numbers were always so abysmal in Tampa Bay Rays and Tropicana Field. And he held true. He didn't hit well there. But outside of that, he's hit amazing everywhere. He still has huge pop in his bat. Get him on a 1 year deal. There's no risk. It's only reward with someone like Nelson Cruz. I think he is just a fantastic option. And I think that Mets fans, and this is my opinion. Again, if you're not on Nelson Cruz train, I respect your opinion. Even if I disagree, perfectly respect it. Nelson Cruz is someone that is not just a perfect short-term fit, but it would also be awesome to see him rekindle his relationship again, which is why I think he would be a factor with his former manager, two-time manager, and Buck Showalter. Buck managed him in his rookie year, I believe, with the Texas Rangers. And then Buck left, and then that's where Nelson Cruz started to thrive. And then Cruz was with Buck 1 year in Baltimore, and he had a really good year with him back in 2014. My memory's not mistaken. Nelson Cruz is a phenomenal get. He started his MLB career as a New York Met, was signed as a free agent, and never played a game with them, but he did start his pro career, I should say, in the Mets organization. And unfortunately, it was very short-lived because look at what Boomstick has done throughout his career. And look, Boomstick has been able to thrive with a DH for multiple years now. He wouldn't be in the league still if we didn't have a DH. So it's important why the DH makes sense for the NL now on both sides. Nelson Cruz profiles fantastically. And now the most interesting factor here when talking about the DH position, in my humble opinion, is the thought of a Jorge Soler. Now, Jorge Soler, again, that we discussed already, is someone that thrived when he got dealt from the Kansas City Royals to the Atlanta Braves this past year. He was a playoff MVP for them. The guy was he was a stud. And Jorge Soler, who back in 2019 was right up there with Pete Alonso for being a home run champ, was phenomenal in his own right. Same thing with other guys like Eugenio Suarez, etc. But Soler is a free agent. And while I do think that he's probably going to stay in Atlanta, because I think he was a great fit there, I wouldn't see why they wouldn't want to try to keep him, right? Soler, just perfect DH fit. I mean, if you look at his numbers this past season, in total, yes, he had a 223 average, but when he got traded to the Braves, everything flipped a switch for him. 27 runs, 74 RBI, 74 runs scored, 70 RBIs. In 2019, in the juiced ball era, 48 home runs, 117 RBIs, 95 runs scored. That was Soler's coming out party. He had no season even remotely close to that. He started off as a coveted prospect for the Chicago Cubs. I remember him. I remember the Cubs and Cubs fans wondering, when is he going to get together? When is he going to be fully rounded out? When is that going to happen? It never happened. He got traded to Kansas City. Took a couple years. Age 27 season. His first season where he played 162 games. and that was far and away his best season of his career. Remarkable numbers. Soler, though, massive pop in his bat when he makes contact. Oh my God, you could hear that thing from a mile away. He's huge. And what's exciting about the thought of someone like Soler is the fact that he's still very much in his prime. He's only 29 years of age, but contract-wise, I think Soler is someone that might be looking for I think the term-wise might put off someone like the Mets. Can Soler get 5 years in free agency? I doubt it. But even if he wants upwards of 4, that seems like a stretch for a guy that profiles as DH. 3 might be a sweet spot. That's similar to Schwarber. But when evaluating the two, the Mets could really use a power lefty bat in this lineup far more than they could use a power righty bat in this lineup. So that's why I think Schwarber's the most appealing externally based on the lefty ability, based on he's crushing the Mets, might as well bring him on. Also knowing that Schwarber is a great target for a team like the Philadelphia Phillies that showed interest in him pre-lockout. If you can eliminate the idea of the Phillies landing another player outside of them losing out on Starling Marte, because the Mets landed him, of course, then sign me up. I'm in favor of that. Again, what the Mets prioritize DH-wise post-lockout is something I'm very excited to see. I'm beyond excited the fact that we actually have a DH now in place. And more than anything, I'm just excited to know that the Mets are going to have a guaranteed, bona fide, strong bat in that lineup every single day. And the DH is something where they may get in an idea where they want to platoon it, right? A DH is something where you don't need to be definitive that, okay, you only can have one guy profile as your DH, right? Like, not every team is going to have the likes of a Giancarlo Stanton or a JD Martinez, right? There's teams like the Mets, they may go in a scenario where maybe they're going to have a rotation of guys that go in the DH just because they know they can, right? And that way they still add another significant bat in that lineup every day, but they don't need to be committed to one sole guy at the position. The Mets may very well go down that route. They may get very creative with the DH position. It's something that they've shown in years past. You know, in the short 2020 season when they had the DH, they thrive with it and they fluctuate with who they have the DH position. Then when you look at when they've had the DH as well, when they go in the AL, whenever they do those matchups, they vary who they put in the DH spot. They normally thrive. They normally do really well. So all in all, I don't see how this doesn't benefit the Mets. I don't see how this is a win-win situation for not just the Mets, but for us fans to see more productive offense and something the Mets we all know too well they very much need, big time. But I'm really, really curious to see what your guys' stance are on the DH position. So everyone in the live stream right now, thank you so much for 100 plus likes. Help us get to 200 likes for the next short-term goal. As always, guys, let me know in the live stream, what do you think is the best fit for the New York Mets at the DH position? Do you think it is internally or do you think it's externally? And keep in mind, externally, depending on who we're discussing, means that the Mets are going to probably have to make a trade as well, because it's hard to imagine the Mets having JD Davis, having Dom Smith, having Robinson Cano, and still doing something externally DH-wise. Is it impossible? No, but it feels like at least one of those guys has to get traded, and they will get traded. I feel pretty confident saying one of those three is going to be gone. At least one, might be more. But I really want to know what your thoughts are regarding the DH position for the Mets. What do you personally like as a profile, internally or externally? Daniel, what's up, my man? Don't forget, Tyler, MLB will not be drug testing this year since their contract expired to go Cano. I know. Isn't that a joke? Can we take a moment about that? Like, seriously? Shows you how much the MLB actually prioritizes steroid use. Such an effing joke, because their contract expired and because they already had their own negotiations regarding a separate contract that they're worrying about. They can't even sign the damn deal for guys to get tested. It's pathetic. I mean, everything about how the MLB operates is pathetic. It really is. It truly is. And it pisses me off that I have to say that as someone that's such a diehard and avid baseball fan, but it's the truth. It's the truth. And that doesn't just go for the MLB. That goes for most major sports, if we're being quite honest with you. How most of these sports operate is a joke. It can be done so much better, so much easier. There's so many things that can be avoided that aren't avoided. But again, I'm going on a tangent here. That's nor here nor there, right? True story. Thank you so much for the $2 donation. If they sign Schwarber, they trading for pitching. If they sign Schwarber, I agree. The likelihood of them trading for pitching is greater than signing for pitching. And when you talk about pitching, I'm assuming you mean starting pitching. Because yes, I agree with you. It's not impossible for them to do everything through the free agent market. But yeah, I would say that's a fair comment to make. Like, I understand your thought process behind that one. Eli says, "Hey, Worry, would you rather Soler and Rodon or Schwarber and Kershaw?" Good question. I like that question. And I would personally go Schwarber and Kershaw, because even though he has these health uncertainties, so does Rodon. And Kershaw is someone that's more of a guarantee in his production than someone like Rodon, even though Kershaw's in the latter half. Schwarber, that lefty bat, I think would have a stronger impact for the Mets than Soler. Even though I think Soler would be like Cespedes reincarnate. Do you guys agree? Soler has given me so many. I think Soler would be a Cespedes 2.0 if he came to the Mets as DH. And I stand by that. I really do. I think that there's a lot of similarities. Nelson Cruz over Schwarber. Cruz will be cheaper and almost the same production. I agree with you in the sense that yes, he'll be cheaper. Yes, he's probably the most realistic DH fit externally, just based on what his asking price will be. Yes. Now, thing is, though, Mets have to deal with everyone being a DH now, and meaning that a lot of teams are going to have interest in Nelson Cruz. Can the Mets sway Cruz? I mean, the Mets can throw him the highest AAV, so there's that. And I do think that Cruz would have interest to come back to the Mets where he originally came into the MLB, right? I think that'd be a nice full circle story. And the fact that he has a relationship with Buck, I think only helps his case of coming here. JD, if healthy, if Hand's healthy, can Rick? Oh yeah, I agree with you. I agree with you, Ken. Long time no see. New Yorker, Schwarber is perfect left-hand power hitter. Keep McNeil. Okay. Yep, I agree with that as well. Realistic Mets use Cano Dom as DH and sign an above-average pitcher as their third man. See, it's fun when we say realistic because what we view as realism could be the farthest thing from the truth post-lockout. So, like, I get what you're saying in the sense that Cano's contract is not just something that you can easily part with. And Dom is someone where are you going to trade him? You don't know. So it's funny because I get what you're saying and I understand your mindset wholeheartedly, but just the fact that I could view that as realistic too, and that might not even remotely be true once lockout. It's just so funny. Like we think we have an idea with things, but we still don't know anything for certain, obviously, until things happen, right? You followed up by saying you never know what Cohen's wallet, though. Exactly. What's up, Phil? Great member on the channel. Who can we get more for Dom or JD? I personally want Davis to stay. I think that there's defensively, there's far more value in Dom Smith than there's JD Davis. Offensively, I will make the argument that there's a significant more value in JD Davis and Dom based on their track record at this point. I think their values are very similar, though. I will agree on that much because they're both not versatile players. Versatile in the sense of being good in their versatility. They're not. They're both not left fielders, even though that they both got some small to extensive time at the position. I think their value is quite similar, to be quite honest with you. They're both not free agents until 2025. So they have the same contract status and have had similar careers to this point. Even though I will say that Dom, JD has had more of a consistent breakout, offensive production wise versus Dom, who balled out in the short 2020 season. JD didn't ball out. He had an okay season, but JD balled out in more of a increased role in 2019 when the juice ball era happened. So keep that in mind too. Soler Vestivus for the Mest of Us. I love that. Am I calling any Mets games on this channel? Yes. Throughout the season, I will be doing Mets live streams in game. Not for every game, of course. It'll be very selective because we'll be doing a lot of coverage that I'll be getting into leading into the season. There's going to be a complete schedule on the channel starting the season that you guys will see that I think you'll be very excited about so you know what to expect basically every single day outside of breaking news topics happening, because that's something that I can't control and say that's going to be scheduled, when in reality, if breaking news happens, breaking news happens. You have great work. Do I think Jays and Mets are going to do something after a lockout? Yes, I think that they both will. Daryl, appreciate the kind words. Would I sign Schwarber to keep them away from Philly? I wouldn't sign him for that being the sole reason. Obviously, you need to make sure that benefits the team. But between what he would do for the Mets and also by taking him away from Philly, yeah, I'm not against that. I think Kyle Schwarber would do really well in Queens. I stand by that. And I think he just profiles awfully well for what the Mets need for another lefty power bat. If you look at how this lineup is currently constructed, they really could use something like that. Schwarber and Pete Alonso in the same lineup too is disgusting. Like, just the thought of that, if I'm being completely honest with you, it's a fun thought. It really is. I want the Mets to have another power bat in there outside of Eduardo Escobar. Escobar is exciting. I think Escobar is going to prove so many people wrong, in the sense of, I think people don't understand how impactful Eduardo Escobar is going to be home run power wise. But point is that the Mets can get a lefty power bat. I think that's going to be huge for them. I really do. Can a Dodgers join in the conversation? What do you mean a Dodgers, Robert? If I'm not mistaken, if they were to sign a DH and pitcher based on the current roster with the additions, JD McNeil or Dom Smith will have to get traded regardless. No, they don't have to, but the likelihood of them all being on the roster, I think, is very slim. I think that Dom or JD especially are gone if the Mets address DH externally. I really do. Oh, what we're talking? Yeah, of course, Robert. Yeah, you've been a great supporter. You can chime in all you want, my man. Let's see. I'm very high in Vientos. If you guys saw the video, then you know, obviously. But if you haven't, make sure to check it out. As long as the Mets don't trade Vientos, I'm completely on board with him and what the potential he has for this upcoming season. Even if he only impacts maybe half the season. I mean, I think he's a guy that's going to have potentially a greater impact than any other Mets prospect right now. I really wish they could find a way to get a deal done for Castillo, says Jack. Yeah, I mean, do I think Castillo's impossible? No. Pete will, with protection, will get 50-plus home runs again. I love the fact that you said protection. That's huge. If the Mets have multiple power bats in this lineup that also hit for a solid average like a Schwarber, yes, that's going to benefit Alonso a lot. And that's a great point. I'm glad you brought that up, Ken. But regarding Castillo is someone where he's by far the best out there pitching wise. And I really don't think that's an argument. It's Luis Castillo than everyone else to acquire, either in the trade or free agent market. He's going to cost an arm and a leg. I don't think he's impossible, but I don't think he's nearly as likely as someone trade wise from the Oakland A's, for example. Schwarber. Need to get athletic, not clog bases with power hitters who can't run. Speed athletic players, although Schwarber can mash. Schwarber would be, I think, would be fine. I don't think Schwarber is someone. Yes, I know he's not crazy athletic. I'm aware of that, but I really think he would thrive for the Mets at the DH position. I do. I don't think he's a pylon. I think if you're talking about a guy that lacks athleticism, who is actually probably the more realistic DH fit externally, is Nelson Cruz. Nelson Cruz is not fast by any stretch. So if that's more so the guy that you probably wouldn't like versus Schwarber, from what you're saying to me at least. Castellanos, is he possible? No, I wouldn't say he is, because the Mets are beyond reluctant to go after guys with draft pick compensation, especially someone like Castellanos, who's looking for upwards of a 5-year deal. I don't see a world where the Mets do that. Appreciate your kind words, Robert. Thank you, my friend. We have a DH. Yes, we do, Ghostway. And how's it going, Ghostway? Hope you're doing well. Hope the mug is treating you well, too. Would love to see Castillo happen, but the idea of a package to land Chapman and say Manaea is a lot more likely, and Dev helps the team. Yeah, I agree. Again, agreed. Oh, Matt, how's it going? Shout out to my guy, Matt. How's it going, buddy? Everybody, if you guys don't know, I was just on a Mets podcast that you can check out wherever you get your podcasts today. Till Mets Do Us Part. Fantastic conversation. Please make sure to check them out, guys, by the way. Had an awesome time. Seriously, cannot tell you guys how much fun it was to be on their pod. So please make sure to check it out if you guys haven't seen it. Till Mets Do Us Part, wherever you get your podcast. We chatted all things Mets for over an hour. It was a lot of fun. Was on their pod. If you guys can check it out, it just came out today. Here, guys, give me 1 second. I'm going to grab a drink real quick. So give me 1 second. But before I go grab it, and we're getting closer. Again, help us get 200 likes for the next short-term goal, folks. We're still at a rock solid 89% happy with the universal DH out of 330 votes so far in the live stream. I love to see that. Really, really appreciate that, too. I'm glad that the majority of us are on the same page. And yes, Matt, hope you're doing well. Long time no see. I had to check back for a second because I was like, wait, who's that? I saw the last name. I'm like, oh, Matt. Okay, awesome. Kish says, damn, I'm so voted out on the DH poll. Join the dark side, Kish. It's all you can do. I'm glad the DH drama is over with. Me too. Me too, Adele. Me too. I wouldn't even say it was drama. It was just buildup. You know, we've had this idea for so long that, yes, the Mets are going to have the DH, but when's it going to happen? It's happened now. So I'm happy about that. Hey, Worry, big fan of the channel. Oh, thank you, Ali. How's it going? Keep it up. Let's see. Your preference rank on the three Oakland starting pitchers: Bassett, Manaea, Montas. And thank you so much, Ali, for the kind words. Appreciate that. My preference rank, okay. Preference rank is Montas is number one. He's the top dog. He's the top dog out of the group. Number two, I'm going to go with, for what the Mets need, Sean Manaea, just because I love the appeal of a lefty. Number three, Bassett, but you can make a completely fair argument to suggest that you think Bassett's better than Manaea. And I think that Bassett actually has more longevity potentially than Manaea because he has literally like no innings on his arm. Bassett just became a full-time starter back in 2018, 2019. He has not been a starter in the league for a while. Prior to that, he was a reliever, and he has some disgusting off-speed stuff. So, I mean, they're all great. Montas is the leader of the pack, however, because Montas, he doesn't have a lot of innings on his arm. He had a PED suspension a couple years ago when he was finally starting to turn it on. Unfortunately, that was his one PED suspension. I don't see that happening again. Broke out this year, did a phenomenal job, and is on a favorable contract, though. Multiple years left on his contract, which is why he's going to cost the most. And when you look at pitchers available via trade this year, the most expensive, it's Luis Castillo, number one, and it's Frankie Montas, number two. If we're basing things on contract value and performance. Dave says DH in this order: Schwarbo, Soler, Cruz, Vientos, Dump Cano. Okay. And guys, shout out. I love body armors. I don't know about you guys, but they just came out. I think they just came out recently with a Mamba Forever Under Armour, which is actually pretty sick. It's strawberry grape, but it's Mamba after, yes, the late Kobe Bryant. May he rest in peace. I think that's really cool, though. Mamba Metalli has his both number 8 and number 24 on here. It's pretty. I don't even like grape, and I like this. So shout out Body Armor. You know, you're free to sponsor the channel whenever you want. Michael White, $2 donation. Would salary cap help, hurt, or even work? And no, I know. I think salary cap, it would be. It's funny because I went back and forth on salary cap so much. Now, benefits of salary cap, it would make everyone even keeled for the most part. It really would. It would have everyone on the same page spending wise. The NHL has a hard salary cap of over 70 million. But the issue with salary cap, especially with the market as big as the MLB, dollars, what kind of salary cap are you looking at? You know, when you got Mike Trout on a $500 million contract? How are you trying to, how? I just don't see it. Like, I don't see it. I think luxury tax is going to continue. I'm not against luxury. I used to be heavily against luxury tax. I've come a long way. I'd be lying if I didn't say that, it does go in part with having the richest owner in baseball now. And I'm grateful for that. I will biasly say that. And I'm not afraid to say it. But something that I am very much in favor for, that I know would benefit clubs, is a salary floor to make sure that they have to spend a certain amount of money, because MLB owners are such schmucks. Imagine being an MLB owner and not even giving a damn about your team to the point where you don't care how much, like, you don't want them to spend a dime. Michael, thank you again for the donation. Appreciate that. But point I'm trying to make is, it pisses me the hell off how we have a great example. The Dolan family owns the Cleveland Guardians. They're among the richer group of ownership in all of baseball. Yet Cleveland acts like they're an effing bottom feeder every single year. They have to penny pinch. Every single time they look like they have a competent club, they have to part with it because they can't keep those damn players long term. Latest example, I don't know, Francisco Lindor. They were over $100 million off of what Lindor was looking for in an extension. And of course, that was his value, rightfully so at the time. Jose Ramirez is going to be the next perfect example when his contract is up, because he's on a great contract right now. But point I'm trying to make is, it just really pisses me off how owners who have money act like they don't. And then there's people that get pissed off at Steve Cohen now for spending money. Oh, I'm sorry that our owner actually gives a rat's ass about the team. I can't say the same about your owner. It sucks. We know how it felt with the Wilpons for the longest time. Mets fans know. It just, if you're going to own a team, the least you could do is actually try to put forth an effort. Because the reality is, every single team in the league can spend. Can every single team in the league spend to Steve Cohen's extent? No, of course not. I'm not saying that. But what I am saying is that every team can spend above what they are currently doing. And they can actually give their fans a reason to want to attend every year outside of just cheap hot dogs and, cheap tickets, right? Pittsburgh, you have money. Stop acting like you don't. Start spending it. That's my rant. I'm sorry. What a dumb name, Commanders. I know. All the new names are stupid. Let's see. The NBA salary cap makes stars players worth 40% of their team. Yep. And NBA players make so much. Yoshima, how's it going? I think Freddie will be playing in the... I think he could be a Yankee too, and it sucks. It's a lose-lose situation if he goes to Yanks, if we're being honest, because Freddie, I've always loved Freddie. I just hate the fact that he's brave. But two, Freddie going to the Yankees sucks. I don't want to see him with the Yankees. And three, it would even suck more because the Braves are viewing Matt Olson as a backup plan if they lose out on Freddie. So either way, they might have first base on lock. And I don't want Matt Olson in this division. So it's kind of like pick your poison. If I'm being honest, I would prefer if Freddie stayed in Atlanta because he's a Brave. He's going to retire a Brave. And if anything, the Yankees get Olson, because I would much rather see a Freddie Freeman getting into now more so the latter half of his career than see a young, spry, fun Matt Olson on a favorable and then a long-term contract with the Braves to be that heir apparent to Freddie Freeman. I don't want that. Okay. So, it's a negative, you're picking the wound, just how bad of a wound do you want? I'm going to go with the first one. Freddie staying with the Braves. Do I think the Mets can get Schwarber? Yes, I do think that they can. Will they? We'll find out. Nito, McCann, McNeil, Alonzo, Canna. Rory, here's here is who we currently have that would be on the active 26 man. Oh yeah, no, Karen. I know everyone that's on the 26 man. Thank you though. I appreciate that. Yeah, thankfully I'm in the loop on who's on the roster. If I didn't, then I don't think I'd have a right to be talking to you guys right now. What's up, AB? How's it going? Do I think the Mets can get Schwarber and Suzuki? That I would be surprised by. That I would. $3 donation. Wow. Thank you so everyone hyping the chat to my girlfriend, that being Nina, hyping the chat to her. So generous with the whopping $3 donation. She knows I'm just joking. Thank you so much. Hope you're doing well. I'll text you. I know. She's probably wondering, why haven't you talked to me? I'm like, I got a live stream to worry about. So that's what we're doing. So thank you, Nina. Hype in the chat for Nina. Get some dono hype in there for my girl. You'll probably see her featured in live streams at some point this season. Thoughts on Schwarber? I share them already, but in a nutshell, I think Schwarber makes plenty sense given he's a big lefty power bat, which the Mets really need. They could benefit a lot from. My thing with Schwarber is, would the Mets be willing to go on a multiple years for someone like him? That's something that I don't know. I really don't know. Do I think Castellanos is a possibility now? Says Lindor. No, I don't. I don't think he's a possibility now because the compensation, I'm pretty sure post-lockout, you still have to give up at least a draft pick. I don't think the no compensation kicks in for the new CBA until next offseason. So because of that reason, and because Castellanos wants like upwards of 5 years, Mets aren't going to do that. You want KB in a Mets black uniform so bad? Me too. Me too. What do I think of the Mets trading for Kyle? I would love for the Mets to get Kyle Freeland. That's a name we haven't talked about this offseason. Let's do a quick Fangraphs look on Kyle Freeland. Is Kyle Freeland going to happen? No. He's someone that you're going to have to give up too much for. I like. That's a name. You said, I don't even want Germán Marquez. I want Kyle Freeland. That's an interesting pick. That's a very interesting pick. Freeland, of course, the appeal with someone like him is he's a lefty. Prime of his career, 28 years of age. Had a 4.3 ERA. Kyle Freeland gives me very similar Tyler Anderson vibes when evaluating them. Difference is why I wouldn't see the Mets going down this route either is, one, Freeland is someone that, of course, would be a back end of the rotation guy that maybe you can get more out of than what he's done so far with the Rockies. Again, inflated numbers usually happen when they play in cores. It's not a pitcher's park by any stretch. But outside of that, Freeland is someone where if the Mets are going to go after a depth piece, I don't see why the Mets don't do a depth piece through free agency, like a Tyler Anderson, to be quite exact with you, like a Yusei Kikuchi that I know that they had a lot of interest in pre-lockout, guys like that. So Freeland, depth-wise, makes sense. I would be surprised if the Mets went trade route for a depth pitcher. I see the Mets going down a trade route for a number 3, not a depth starter, in my opinion. Pen Mets, this is a good comment. Appreciate the donation again, Pen Mets. Type in the chat for my man. He says, a change. I miss Shea. We all do. It felt more Mets. Atmosphere never matched for a big game. Since Cohen embraces Mets history, I hope he adds more a Shea Field to City. For example, New York skyline on top of scoreboard instead of Shake Shack. I think there's going to be more of a New York Mets feel throughout the years with Cohen as owner. And I think we've already seen that. And look, I'm not someone that was able to fully appreciate Shea as a young fan. I know that you obviously got to experience everything with Shea, and I can only imagine how awesome that was. But what I can tell you is that Citi Field is electric. Like when the Mets are actually playing Compton baseball, it's a playoff atmosphere there. It really is. And I love Citi Field. I love the layout of it. I think it's a great stadium. But I agree with you in the sense that it could be nice if they made it a little bit more Metsy in that right. And I do think that over time they're going to continue to add more to it, especially with paying homage to the Mets alumni, the Mets greats, right? We're going to see more and more of that over the years. So I think that this is truly only the start of getting more of that quote unquote Mets feel when you walk into Citi Field. Are Mets still in the loop for Seiya Suzuki? Yes. Hey, Wardy, what do you want Eddie Rosario and put Canna at DH? Nope. I would not want that, if I'm being quite honest with you. Eddie Rosario he's a low on base, average defender who clutched up in playoffs with the Braves, just like Jorge Soler. You know, I don't think I think Eddie Rosario, he's an interesting option. But he's someone where I think what happened with him with the Braves this year is something that isn't going to replicate, to be honest with you. And I think I want more high on base guys if we're basing things on outfield like that. I think Canada is going to be the Mets starting right fielder as of now, unless they get a Seiya Suzuki, unless they potentially get someone else. And Canada most certainly doesn't profile well at the DH position. Because, yes, he gets on base a lot, but, he's not known for his slugging by any stretch. And naturally, when you use DH, the vast majority of the time, you use it for a power hitter. Not that it needs to be that way, but that's something that is commonly done. Doug says, do not want Schwarbo. No position unless we unload Cano. And that's a completely fair take. I don't blame you for feeling that way. Best move Mets made was getting Buck. Interesting. I'm excited for Buck. I can tell you that much. I really am. Kenna seems like a Met. Well, he is a Met, so there's that. Do the Mets have a chance to make the playoffs this season? Absolutely. Absolutely. And it would be utter failure if they don't make playoffs. I would rather get Seiya Suzuki and move Canada to the DH. Seiya is different. I think in the scenario where that's different, okay? Because if you get Seiya, that's where you can potentially balance the two in the outfield. And what's awesome about having Canada in the scenario where you still do, in a scenario where you sign Seiya Suzuki, which I don't think is likely, I just think that there are teams that are going to prioritize him better than the Mets will, and that will be more appealing for him, for someone that's going to want to be a starter in the outfield right away. I will say, however, that in the scenario where the Mets did land someone like Seiya Suzuki, the upside is that you're getting a guy that hasn't proven himself at the MLB level. So if he does say start out rusty, does say, needs to get himself settled at the MLB spot, you have a veteran, bona fide outfielder that plays all over the place in Marcana that can really help guide him and kind of go about things, balance things. So I understand your thought process with that one, Sean. Do I think that lockout could end by the end of next week? No, I don't think that there's literally any possibility of that transpiring. Unfortunately. Gotta hate the DH. What's up, Big Apple Hockey? And I love the DH, Big Apple Hockey. And I think you will too. I think you will once you see how much it benefits your favorite team. Guys, if you are a New York Rangers, Islanders, overall New York hockey fan, please make sure to check out Big Apple Hockey. They do a fantastic job covering all things New York hockey. Fantastic stuff. Do I think the Mets can still land Castillo? Yes, but it's not likely. More offense is great for the sport. Yes, it is. It absolutely is. And fans are realizing that. I saw a lot of fans start to understand the positives of the DH in the short 2020 season for the Mets because offense was awesome. They just, unfortunately, didn't have pitching that year, and that's what, of course, led to everything. Them not making playoffs and expanded playoffs. It's Sandy. How's it going, my man? Cano, Smith, DH, trade everyone else. Trade everyone else. I mean, what's everyone else? That's just JD Davis, right? The gossip is opening day on April 20th. Maybe. I mean, I could definitely see the season starting in mid to late April. I'll be surprised if it starts on time, unfortunately. Personally, I'm all for a trade to get pitching, but I'm not willing to give up McNeil. Fair take. I like that take. That's fair. Again, though, all I will say is that if Jeff McNeil gets traded, please realize that there are reasons behind it. Please do not be that... I need to be careful about what I say. Please do not be that stuck-up fan that says, Oh my goodness, Jeff McNeil. Oh, oh my God, it's Daniel Murphy again. Oh my God, it's Justin Turner. It's a Wilpon move. No. What did those two players do? They thrived elsewhere, right? Had career years elsewhere. And the Mets shouldn't have let them go. Agreed. Were those players dealt? Did the Mets receive anything of substance in return? No. The Mets are not trading Jeff McNeil without getting something that's going to benefit this team right away. If they get a bona fide number 3 starting pitcher and address that infield spot with whoever it may be, maybe it's Matt Chapman, maybe it's a Chris Bryant, whoever it may be, to fill the void of losing Jeff McNeil, and that benefits the Mets winning a championship, no one's going to be talking. No one should be expecting Jeff McNeil to not bounce back, because he will bounce back. There's no denying that. But there are clear reasons behind why the Mets may part ways with Jeff McNeil, and it goes beyond his performance. It's been made abundantly clear by now that there are things that are happening, that have happened in that locker room, that are beyond that. So I'm sorry if you're under the impression that you think that Jeff McNeil is going to get traded, just for, a bag of potatoes, because that's not the reality here. The Mets don't need to trade Jeff McNeil. If they do trade Jeff McNeil, it's going to be something that's going to benefit both sides. And I feel very confident saying that.